Hello, everybody. Welcome back to NASTech 2022 Tech Pashala by FutureSkills Prime. Hope you've had an interesting day thus far. FutureSkills Prime is a joint initiative of Ministry of Information Technology and Electronics and Nasscom. I'm very excited for our next session and open source development, democratizing the tech industry by Ashok Balakrishnan and Karthikeyan Krishnaswamy from OpenWeaver. However, before we begin, I would like to address a few questions. We are getting a lot of questions on the process as to how to avail the NASTech virtual pass, free virtual pass. And Richa, hi, would you like to take this one, please? You're here with us.
Yes. Hi, Amrita. So the query is about the virtual pass. I guess the virtual pass was not working for some time, but now we have reactivated that. You can visit our website, that is nasscom.in/NASTech, and you can register for a digital pass.
Thank you so much for that, Richa. Thanks a lot. So now coming back to our session now, I would like to welcome Ashok, who's the CEO of OpenWeaver, and which focuses on leveraging emerging technologies to further digital transformation. He's passionate about countless possibilities that technology brings to people's lives and businesses. He holds a bachelor's degree in electronic engineering and MBA in marketing strategy from IIM Bangalore. Ashok is also a member of Forbes Technology Council and has been co-chair for the Robotic Process Automation chapter at IAOP and part of the leadership team in the Tech America's Federal and State Cloud Commissions. The co-speaker for our session is Karthikeyan, who's also the CTO of OpenWeaver with extensive experience in technology, architecture, and enterprise transformation businesses and product design. He has worked on varied technology platforms with AI for intelligent automation and high-performing enterprise business systems for different industries spanning across banking, manufacturing, healthcare, retail, and logistics. Thank you both of you for joining us today. Over to you.
Let's do a quick tech check to see if my screen comes up. Okay.
Yeah, Ashok, I think it's coming up now. Excellent. All good.
Thank you so much, Amrita, for a warm welcome and this wonderful opportunity to talk to this amazing audience. And I'm really hoping that this audience is a great set of developers or your students who are aspiring to be developers or you are closely associated with the application development industry. What we will guarantee at the end of the 60 minutes is that all of you who will go through this will have a way to develop applications or use cases faster, cheaper, better using open source. And all of the young aspirants will start developing applications like a 10-year experienced developer. So that's the cool thing that you will get to see today from Karthik and myself. So beyond that, the title is pretty intriguing, right? So if you look at it, there is digital, there is open source, and there is application. So I'll do my best to kind of walk you through what each of these things mean and how they kind of will help you become better developers, develop applications faster. So first part, we will take digital, right? I think that's one of the most most misused terms today. I think everything we call digital and what's different in digital. So if you start from the basics, right? So this is not Steve Jobs or Bill Gates and their engaged. So that's not the quiz that we have now. But it all started, let's say about 2 decades ago when we had something called as management information services, right? So technology in its infancy, when computers were started in business, we used to have this funda called management information services. So we had applications, we had computers, and there was business. And in business, they said, hey, there is management, and management needs information, and computers were to solve the problem of giving information to management. And about 2 decades ago, it's not very long. It's probably the time that I started, or I was building applications. So the focus was at that time, if you look at it, it used to be a lot of it on batch jobs. If you're lucky, you had a daily batch job. Most of it were weekly reports and so on and so forth. And that 5% who are super lucky were working on credit cards and stock exchanges, where we did real-time applications. So that used to be 2 decades ago, right? It was called management information systems. Past decade and even till like 5 years ago, we came to this situation called information technology. And sadly, in many places, we still call it IT. We call it IT industry. So the concept was similar. It said, hey, there is a business, there is information, and there is technology that is going to give that information. And thankfully, I think they realized, because maybe computers became cheaper. So they said, it's not just management, even operations teams needs information. So that's where management information services became, information technology, where they said everyone needs information. And then we saw, web applications coming in, some RFID, real-time tracking, real-time dashboard. So operations could still use, computers to say, where is my inventory, where is my shipping landing, and things like that. And interestingly, if you look at that era, a lot of those innovations came in. So we moved away from legacy kind of computing to web computing and so on and so forth. And probably what was the birth of the digital that is today. But still the concept was same, that there is a business, there is information, and technology will give that information. It was still seen outside the business, and we had great debates that says, is IT an enabler? Is IT a differentiator? Is IT a support function? So all those debates happened maybe till about 5 years ago. And if you start looking at what's significantly transformed in these 5 years, I think it is about how technology is everywhere, right? So maybe let's take a look at what it probably means for today.
Hi, Ashok. Would it be possible for you to show this video again? We can't hear anything.
Understood, Amrita. It's just a background music. I think it'll just.
No worries. Then maybe you could talk through it.
And thanks for the heads up, Amrita. I didn't realize the volume was not coming. So I hope everyone at least had one mindful moment to disconnect and probably get your piece back. But if you look at it, what is digital, right? I think if you look at that thing that happened, that said, hey, there is business, some people wanted information. There is business, a lot of people want information, and that information tracking could potentially be differentiator was what was pre-digital. In digital era, what we're saying is there is nothing called as business and technology. Technology is the business, or business is driven by technology. So we have seen use cases where you saw things like the harvester is running automatically, harvesting, packing. MRIs are adjudicated by algorithms. Our personal lives are so intertwined with technology. Kids are using technology for everyday life, and of course, all of us are doing this amazing session today with an online digital model. So that's great, right? So what we're saying is it moved away from being something that is separate to someone where digital is the product today. So in metaverse, people buy land, which is a digital product. People pay with Bitcoin, which is a digital product. So that separation, that there is something else called a product, there is something else called digital, there is something else called information is gone, and all of it have come together. That digital is the business for today and for the come, right? So that's a great thing, of course, right? And it's a great opportunity for all of us who are developers, aspiring developers in this space. But why is it different? Why is it different that, let's say, I developed COBOL code 25 years back using a very linear process, or we developed some Java code 10 years back in a linear model. Why can't we continue the same way for this digital world? What is different? And that's extremely important for us to understand, saying why the model of technology is changing, and why we should, as deliverers of technology, change as well. So first thing, it is a global phenomenon, right? It is not like someone in North America invented technology, India is a back office, we are only supplying people to develop. Technology is everywhere. So the information that is available in North America is available in sub-Saharan area. And if you look at economies like us, in India, we missed all those desktop, laptop, all those things, and we directly shot up in the mobile wave. So we are a mobile first country, we are a digital first country. So this whole idea of accessibility to technology and implementation of technology is a global phenomenon. So it's going to be there everywhere. It's going to be across billions of people, not anymore millions, hundreds of thousands, lakhs. That scale is absolutely 1,000 times bigger now. And the second dimension, if you look at it, is what I call as pervasive. It means that you cannot separate technology and life anymore. So as we speak, most of you are watching this. Some of you are probably doing something on your phone. Health tracker on my hand is recording every moment of what's happening. Zoom is probably transcribing what we do. People are watching it across YouTube today and in the many years to come. So there is no way for us to separate technology and the way of life that we live. It could be business, it could be personal life. So it is deeply ingrained in what we do. And the last thing is amazing. It is the speed of change, right? So when I started, it is like you learn COBOL, you learn C, C++, you're set for life. You can be a developer. You can aspire to retire with those skills. Last year there was GPT-1, then there was GPT-2, there is GPT-3 now, and I was saying yesterday there is GPT 3.5, and then someone says, "Boss, if you don't know GPT 3.5, you're gone," right? So that's the speed at which things change, and probably if you were creating an application with something a few months ago, that has already become legacy. So the rate at which things are changing is becoming too fast. And I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe next year in NASTech, Amrita will probably invite GPT-10 to do this instead of me, right? So that's the pace at which technology is developing. And these three things, right? I think these three things are extremely important. And if you look at them together, we are saying technology is becoming core. You cannot expect a business to succeed without technology. You cannot expect a normal life to continue without technology. So it is what is called as high risk. It is impacting global populations. It is not like one community is impacted. It is impacting global populations. And the rate at which things are changing are too fast for the development community, for the business communities as well. These three, if you look at it, high volatility, high risk, and large, the whole digital in a context of extremely critical to implement. Now, if you look at it, right, so we're saying, hey, this is a great opportunity, but at the same time, there are significant things in which there is a risk, because digital needs to run very fast. If you're not able to run fast, you're left out. If you're not able to serve the world, it is extremely difficult for you to manage. So we will take let's say we take a pause on what is digital. I think it's a good background for you to understand what digital looks differently today, and why digital may be critical for going forward. We'll take a slight detour and look at the other topic now, saying, hey, why are we talking about open source? And here I'll call upon Amrita to kind of launch us. We say, what is our perspective as this audience grew on what is open. Please launch the poll. These are simple. I'll just maybe take a moment to read the questions. And we don't need to wait for it. You can, over the next few minutes, as you listen to the session, you can respond to those. So first question is, are you using any repository? Are you using a GitHub or a GitLab, right? Second, have you made any of those public? Are any of your repositories that you use public? Have you added a license file into those repositories? And fourth question, I was tempted to call it, have you copied code? But some of us find that stigma around copying. So I'll put it, have you reused code from Stack Overflow or GitHub? So feel free at your pace to answer these questions, and then we'll come back on, hey, what is the context of asking those questions? And how does this group feel towards the end of it, okay? So now, why open source, right? So we looked at those. Now we will look at how could those three challenges be addressed in a very different way. So first one, if you look at it, right? So any question you have today, when I was a kid, I used to go to my teacher, or I used to go to my dad or my mom and ask. And today, my kids don't come to me; they go to Google and ask the question, right? So none of us look to any human being for answers, for information. We all go to Google. So same way, if you look at technology's knowledge, and we'll come to it in terms of scale, all of it is codified into open source. So today, about 50 years of technology knowledge is codified into open source. So like you will search for answers in Google, all those answers are available saying if you want to build app A, app B, app C, all of those are available in open source today. Second, as the name implies, it is open, right? It is not like saying, hey, I started with, and of course, GPT is a great example. It is not open source, but if you started with TensorFlow, it is fully open source. And you say, hey, let me start building something using TensorFlow. There's a community that continues to build. Tomorrow, if you feel saying, hey, I need to do something else in private with it, you can take the code, you can modify it. Of course, many of us may not understand the billions of parameters. But of course, you can modify, simple applications. You can customize it. You can create something that is core to you on top of it. So it helps both from a trial perspective because community versions are free, and there is no lock-in, which means from a long-term perspective, you can continue to drive it as long as you want to drive it. And you don't need to be worried about saying, hey, is that vendor going to go away? Are they going to start support and so on and so forth? So that's the extremely critical dimension of being open, easy to experiment. And the last thing is extremely important. It might not be so visible, which I call as democratizing development, right? So if you look at, let's say AI, and there was this example that says, crash dummies today for vehicle safety. Both the physical models and the software model have been modeled based on a male rider, a male driver. And when accidents happen, these 5-star NCAP ratings that you see have been rated based on a male who is driving. That's because some engineers thought, hey, males are drivers. And then they said, if a female is driving, she could be injured in a very different way because the body structure, the size, all of those are significantly different. Bone structures are very different. So that a woman in an accident needs to be modeled differently. So it's a very simple example. But take it in a context where, let's say, you're creating a fake news system, you're creating an insurance system. If it is created by a closed loop set of engineers, a closed loop set of data, whatever biases they may have, like this, for example, this was gender bias in action. There could be racial bias, there could be perceptions, so on and so forth, which can seep into these platforms. And because digital is used by billions of people, the core biases of a few hundred people can impact a billion people. But what's happening in open source? I don't know if any of you read the Octoverse GitHub report 2022 that came in this month. India is one of the largest contributors to GitHub and public repositories. So you're seeing developers across the globe contributing. Means we contribute data, we contribute models, we contribute biases or perspectives. And when the whole world contributes, a lot of these biases get neutralized, localization, language, all of those gets neutralized. So it becomes a robust system. So think of it, digital, things change very fast, things get obsolete. It is core to our life, every decision matters. And this side we are saying, hey, open source is, there is no lock-in, the whole world is contributing it, there are no biases, and it is free for you to use. So it's a great way for anyone to start building digital applications using open source. So now we will come to, so now if there is a context that we understood that digital is critical, and open source as a platform is a phenomenal platform for anyone to invest into, because the digital is changing so fast. You cannot invest in a proprietary platform that will become extinct so soon. So now let's bring the application part of it. How does applications play, right? So if you look at it, and this is a perspective with a lot of people. So when I ask young developers or even senior people, hey, what is open source? They say open source is Linux, or they say there is a 40-year-old, I don't want to make it so old, but yeah, there is a decades worth of experienced engineer sitting somewhere on Linux machines or Unix machines writing commands is open source. So that's that perspective that is out there that says, that open source is Linux or Unix or kernel commands or Android. There is nothing shiny in open source. This is the perspective, which is what we will demystify. And in the next 30 minutes, we will show you how to build amazing applications using open source in minutes. Okay. So quick snapshot, right? Open source for applications. So what is the largest size of an outsourcing company in India? So you will probably say 2 lakhs, 3 lakhs, 5 lakhs. Take the top 4, maybe 10 lakh developers, right? 10 lakh million developers that will be there. So if you want the largest outsourcing company, it is open source. There are 100 million developers who contribute to open source. So if anyone wants to tap into the topmost of the top 10 IT companies, you have open source, which has a live feed of over 100 million developers that is there. And these are available in multiple flavors as well. So you have GitHub, which is the largest today, very developer-focused public repository. If you want something that is close to DevOps, but public repositories, there is GitLab, Bitbucket, again, millions of repositories available there. Business-focused, if you need business applications, you have SourceForge and some of those critical ones. And again, for research papers, there are multiple others. So there are multiple niches as well. And look at the scale. Just in last 1 year, there were 500 million contributions made by these 100 million plus people. So what does 500 million look like, right? It is codes that come in. These are bugs that are fixed. These are maybe someone just wrote a README file that says, how do you really understand some of these things? So these are critical aspects that come in. And think of the scale, right? You, me, and individually, we will maybe make 10 pushes to production every month. Or if you're on the lucky, you may make 10 production pushes per day. But think about 500 million pushes that happen, 100 million developers that you have access to, and the knowledge of 100 million developers that is there. And it is not vaporware, right? It's not there for someone else. It is there. 90% of the companies in the world use it. So it is there for you. You have access to the knowledge of 100 million developers, and if you're not using it, it is a crime, right? You shouldn't be throwing away something that is given to you on a platter. And we will show it to you on how to take it from the platter and build things with it. And the last thing, again, someone might say, man, this open source again is still Android, it may be React, it may be Spring Boot. I cannot build applications with it. Of course, I will use it as a server or a middleware. So that's the beauty. So as OpenWeaver, we invest into making open source usable, and as part of our knowledge stores where we research, of course, technology is large. So between technology, data, media, and networking, telecom, it is about 50%. So these 100 million developers with hundreds of millions of libraries that is given free to you, about half is in that core technology space. And the remaining half is amazingly spread. For example, fintech is a very large domain. Learning management, learning tutorials. I don't know how many of you pay money to take tutorials, about 20% of the libraries that is available is actually free tutorials, free learning material that is there. Retail is 8%, manufacturing 6%, healthcare is small. I think it's probably evolving, but in 100 million, 1% is a large number. 1 million is still a large number when you compare that way. And travel, hospitality again is a large number. So that myth that is there that open source is server and we don't need to use it is needs to change. And there is so much amazing things for you to use. So with that background, I'll call upon Karthik now to kind of show us, hey, how do we take this and use it to build amazing applications very quickly. Over to you, Karthik.
Hi, Karthik. Can you hear us?
Yeah, thanks, Ashok. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible, but maybe you could switch on your camera as well.
Yeah, I am trying to start, but it's somehow Zoom is not able to recognize it. Is it okay if I continue without camera?
Sure. In the meanwhile, I'll try and help you out.
Yeah, it says unable to detect it.
Continue, Karthik.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Ashok, and good afternoon to all the participants in this session. I think Ashok gave a great overview of how open source is actually helping us by reusing knowledge that is there to build great applications. So to just extend whatever Ashok was saying, right? I mean, we started with the servers, maybe the database kind of softwares on the open source side. But today, if you look at what exactly open source brings to the table is across the entire application landscape, right? So from infrastructure to infrastructure elements to your application libraries of any sort, so be it in the area of blockchain, big data, machine learning, front-end applications, web applications, web frameworks. So anything that is required today to build a great application, great digital application is available in the form of open source. And there have been, a large number of people who have benefited from this rich repository of libraries and functions that these open source components provide us. Okay, so today if I have to create an application from scratch, I don't have to go about writing the framework, writing the entire library functions that are required for it to work. There are numerous applications or functions that are available today which I can reuse and then build the applications very fast. So that's the power that open source brings about. I mean, no wonders in the number that is available as well as the popularity of it. I think every organization, almost I think in the entire internet, I think 90 plus applications that are there used by enterprises has been making use of an open source component. Okay, so let me share my screen and then walk you through some of the ways that we can reuse this open source components. Yeah, is my screen visible?
Yes, Karthik. Now we can.
Thanks, yeah, thanks for the confirmation. So like I said earlier, when we create applications, we need the building blocks, right? I mean, we need some frameworks, we need some libraries to give you that reusable functions, and then we need some code that I can use to create those functionality in my application. So I'm just giving you a sample. I'm just starting from the lowest building block, which are your code, okay? And then the code gives you discrete abilities for you to do a functionality in your application. So I'm taking an example in the area of image processing. That's usually in the vision part of the AI capabilities. So if I have to do some kind of OCR or object detection, image recognition, you work with images a lot. You work with images to resize it, to sharpen it, to grayscale it, all of those things. Okay, an example of this particular thing is using the one library, which is open source library called OpenCV to resize. Okay, and you can search for this code snippets, depending on what functionalities that you want. Let me. Yeah, so for example, I mean, you can use OpenCV if you know the library, or if you say resize image using OpenCV, you will get a bunch of suggestions. Okay, using that library, and then what is the code? You can copy the code. You can just go ahead and then take this code into your IDE and then run it as well. So what Candy, what you're seeing here, what we have done is that we have curated a lot of such open source components as well as the functions that they provide, providing an easy way to access it and make use of it. There is one way to reuse all these functions. Okay. So if I had such a requirement, right? I mean, let's just say image grayscaling. So this is another code snippet for grayscaling images, right? So this is an output, how it looks like after the grayscaling is done, and then a very crisp lines of code that you will require to grayscale any image. Okay, so you can copy it from here, and then let us say go to your ID. So for example, right now I'm using the Jupyter notebook here, and then I paste the code snippet in this IDE. I also had done some resizing. Okay, and then this is the image that I'm using as an example. So this is the original image, and then all I do is that paste the code, also the resizing part of it, and then I'm just running it. Okay, so what you do is that you see an output which has turned the image into a grayscale, which ideally, if I had to do from scratch, would have required me to actually create all these functions, internal functions, and do that. But just with a few lines of code, today we are able to achieve very quickly all these different functionalities by reusing all these functions. Like that, you have again like multiple functions, as I said, spread across the horizon of programming languages as well as the topics. So something could be Java, right? I mean, you will have for example, if you wanted to work with some JSON array and convert it to a CSV, there is a Java library which makes use of the Apache's common IO library and then gives you this functionality. So likewise, different programming languages, different functionalities, different topics across blockchain, big data, data processing, anything that you want to do, there are libraries that are available to give you such discrete functionalities which you can assemble and then create a full-fledged application. Okay. The other aspect is that we don't have to necessarily stop with only looking for such functions. Okay, because open source gives you components at different levels. It gives you libraries at the lowest level. It gives you the functions that are available, the scripts that are available, but also it gives you entire applications, okay, that are built, which we can reuse, which we can adapt, which we can modify to our needs. Okay, so it will help you jumpstart your building your end application. So for example, if you had a larger requirement, like you wanted to tackle the fake news problem. Okay, so for building such a application, there are already pre-built solutions that are available in the open source world, which comes up with all these components packaged together. For example, typically, if you take a AI-based fake news detection, you will require a model which is a ML model, machine learning model, which is trained to recognize the fake news, right? And then ability for you to actually train with your own custom data. The custom data could be curated based on geography, could be based on language as well, could be like native to your country and your region as well. So regional languages also, right? And second thing is that you might want to also integrate this service as an API into your end application. For example, it could be integrated into your browser as an extension. So like when you are browsing your news articles, you might quickly pick one articles and examine it through that service to see if it looks real or fake, right? So this kind of different functions or different use cases within the larger solution is made available ready-made to you. That way you can take this kit, so we can call it as a kit. It comes with all this pre-trained model with data that you can actually customize with its own service container to expose it as a services as well. Okay, there are other pieces that, for example, if you want to scrape the articles from the internet news websites, if you want to look at the data for understanding the different features and spread of the data, you can visualize it as well. So multiple such angles, but everything built in one kit. So like this kit, there are multiple kits, there are multiple full-fledged applications also. There could be like e-commerce application, there could be a employee onboarding platform that you might have, there could be a project planning tool that is there, which you can take and then customize quickly and then execute it. So in this case, for this particular solution on AI fake news detection, you have everything packaged together, and once you install it or you download it and import it, this is how it looks like. Okay, so it has those different notebooks. What you see over here is the code that came along with this kit, which allows you to import it into your editor. I'm using Jupyter here, and it comes with all the functionalities of training, predicting whether the news is fake or not, and then again exposing it as an API for you to integrate it as well. So you see modularity built into this open source solutions as well. So you will have the actual training happening in a separate code piece, the visualization happening separately, but all of them are composed here as one solution for you to reuse. Okay, so if I go ahead and then quickly run it, so you'll see training, prediction, all of those things happening. And in the backend, what you have as part of this kit is that you have all these different data files that you can use. Okay, we are using CSV, but any other format is also okay. So you can train it with your own data. You can feed it with the news articles which have been labeled as fake and real. And then once you run it, okay, let's say you feed this as a test set, for example, and then once you run it, it gives you a label, the news articles being labeled whether it is real or fake, and then what kind of probability the model is actually telling you whether it is fake or real. Okay, so this is one such example of how a full-fledged solution can also be taken as one larger building block, and you can use it to build your applications faster. Okay, so now like this, the important thing, another important thing that I want to also highlight is once you start building your applications from open source, there are 100 million developers that are contributing to open source. There are millions of libraries as well. Of course, there are many popular ones, but you have the entire repository of open source components, millions of open source components to access to. So what can you look forward when you want to select a particular library or a code snippet, right? I mean, so let's say you started with a search and then you landed up with some options of libraries and code snippets. Right. So, for example, this particular thing was image grayscaling using OpenCV. So you have a code snippet. Let's say you are not familiar with this open source library called OpenCV. Okay. So what you can also do is that you can go to this particular library and examine its details as well. Right. So what does OpenCV give you? A quick summary of the features that are there. Right. The other dimensions that you will also have to evaluate, which is very critical in the open source world, is all these different dimensions of support, quality, security, license. Okay, these four are the key dimensions in which you need to examine any open source libraries, because once you start using an open source library, you want to be confident that it has got good support from the owner author as well as the community as well, because in the larger sense, the community is the one that matters to the open source growth. So we need to have good support from the community in giving any fixes, giving any support required to make use of that library. So how active is this library in the entire ecosystem? Okay. So if the ecosystem is not supportive, we might end up finding the actual solution using this library, but in the future you might have problems in getting it upgraded, right? So the other aspect is also the quality. Let us say you take an application or fully fledged solution, like I showed you the fake news detection as a solution, and you take it and then you customize it. You are going to inherit some attributes, quality attributes, right? So whatever technical depth that came with that solution, you are inheriting it, and you will be responsible for, let us say, the quality of your application. So it makes sense for us to also look at the quality. So when I say quality, how well structured the code is, does it conform to the best practices of the programming language? Is the code readable, maintainable? All those different aspects of quality is examined, right? I mean, you have different tools to do a code quality check. We have summarized all those parameters here to give you an indication of what kind of quality this particular library or application has, right? The other key dimension, very important one, is security, because with open source, the code is very much open. So there's a positive, there's a negative as well. So positive in the sense that the code is there available for everyone to examine and see whether it is really built with the right code standards, with the right security mechanisms as well. But then again, you have so many versions of the libraries that are available. And with every release of the library, there are patches to a code security vulnerability that gets applied, as well as some of the newer vulnerabilities get detected and reported in multiple security databases. Okay, so if you see, from a code security or from a library security aspect, the NIST holds the security vulnerabilities as one of the repositories of known vulnerabilities. But similarly, there are other repositories which holds the security aspect of this library. And if I have to go and then look at those different security databases, look at what vulnerabilities it has, what vulnerabilities it has fixed, when it is going to get fixed, it's going to be a slightly, detailed investigation for me. So there are some aspects of that security which gets consolidated into this security score, giving you a quick visibility whether there are any reported bugs that are there with this library or not. Okay. You can, I can show you some examples. For example, this OpenCV has no vulnerabilities reported. There are other libraries where you can see that the security might be lower, where there are known vulnerabilities that are reported. So we need to go and see what kind of vulnerabilities they are. Are they priority one, high critical, which will affect my application if I use this or not? Okay, then we can make an informed decision whether this library, yes, it is functionally suitable to me, but at the same time, does it come with some security concerns that I need to be aware of, and I should take precautions to either fix them myself or take some secondary precautions of preventing those kind of security vulnerabilities from hitting you, right? The fourth parameter, which is the license is very important when you reuse any open source components, because though we call it as open source and we say it is freely available for everyone to use, it does come with some boundaries, some responsibilities, and we should be aware of what kind of license a particular component is released with when I use it in my application. Right? So broadly, you can say licenses are or can be classified into 4 to 5 categories. The best one is a permissive category, which allows you to take the library and reuse it, include in your application as an embedded library or component, and you can use it for commercial as well without any strings attached. So permissive license examples are like Apache, MeitY, those kind of licenses, right? So permissive licenses. The other set of next slightly constrained licenses are your restricted licenses, where you will have to, let us say, give attribution, right? Or if you make any changes, you will have to again release your code. So those are some kind of licenses that are like GPL, LGPL, those kind of licenses. So like that, you have a different variety of licenses. So examine the license that is there for any library that you try to reuse, and it will help you to achieve your end objective. So if you want to commercialize your application, there will not be any issues from a legal front. So important to examine the license, understand its legal implications on your applications, and then reuse the library. Okay? Last part is the reuse. It's a more of an indicator to you if this library is going to give me many functions. The other libraries are, when you're comparing, okay, libraries for different functions, what kind of reuse metric is attached to it, and how much of documentation is available. So all those different factors will help you make the choice between different peer libraries in a very informed and in an intelligent manner. All right. So important for you to keep track of all these different parameters whenever you want to use these kind of open source libraries. So the other aspect with the libraries is that how I talked about how active this community is. So if you want to also contribute to this community, okay, so you will have to take care of some of the guidelines that come along with this contributing to a particular library. Okay, so you must be aware what kind of code that you will contribute, what kind of license that it will actually have, what kind of releases from your side that you are actually giving it. So whatever code that once you contribute to a library, and if it is like a permissive license, it is actually not freely available to everyone. So be sure that whenever you contribute, if you want to contribute in a particular way, you choose the license accordingly and then release it. So if you are wanting everyone to contribute back to your application, the open source application, you will have to release with the appropriate license. So the license is important from both ways. Whenever you want to make use of a library, is important. At the same time, when you want to contribute to the open source community, you want to release some library or applications and functions in a particular reusable component, you should also ensure that you choose a very relevant license for your contribution as well. Right. So just as a recap, where we started with millions of libraries and components that are available to build open sources. We looked at what kind of code snippets that are available, or functions that are available for you to build your applications from the ground up. And then when you are, let us say, ready to create a larger application, pre-built solutions that are there in the form of kits that you can use. So just as an example, you will see that there are different type of applications. And for example, if you see this one is with augmented reality, right? And there's an e-commerce. So as I said, the spread is wide. You will have a lot of opportunities to make use of such kits to really jumpstart your application journey. Okay, and it is spread across. So either you start with the lowest building block of functions or slightly larger applications that are available, and then build on top of it. You will have access to what is a very great curated set of libraries and snippets put together, which you can use as a launchpad for enhancing, for customizing, or releasing it as one of your integrated solutions and applications. Okay. So I'll take a pause here and then hand it back to Ashok and Amrita on any questions or any other areas that seem.
Thank you so much, Karthikeyan. I would request everybody to put your questions in the Q&A section and not the chat. That would help us address them better, please.
Yeah, I've got 2 DMs, Amrita. Maybe is there a
Yes,
way to
please.
pull if you could pull the poll in between?
Yeah, I will just do
Take
that.
a quick look at it, and I wanted to reflect to this group. So very interesting, right?
Let me know
If
you can
look
see.
at it, yes, I can see, and I will summarize. So we went through this whole session, and of course, I think there could be a lot of information that happened in the session today. But if you look at it, we said, hey, there is open source, there is a lot of stuff available. Are you using it? Are you contributing it? And do you use it in the right way, right? So first, majority, 76% says they use a repository, GitHub or so. And half of them say they have a public repository, which means knowingly or unknowingly, you have tried to make something open source. Okay, I don't know if that was the intent that you wanted to contribute to open source, but 48% of the audience here are among the 100 million people who have actually put something out that is accessible to someone else. So if you did it knowingly, kudos. If you did it unknowingly, please know it and do it knowingly. So second question is a very important perspective for you to reflect upon. And third thing is is a killer, right? So we said, hey, so many of you have put your repository out for people, but you have not attached a license. And this is a common perception that is there, that there is nothing called as license. If it is there on the internet, I can copy it. And I just got a question from one of the audience as well. So if you do not put a license, it is almost like a locked door. You can take a look at it, but absolutely you can't touch it. So if there is a blog article where someone says there is no license attached to it, or if you put out a repository or you see a repository like what Karthik showed in Candy, maybe he can later pull up something and show, which says no license, means don't touch it. You might get into legal trouble by reusing a repository that says it has no license. And recently we have had large companies that build SaaS databases which used underlying what they thought was open source but did not have a license to resell. They went into millions of dollars of lawsuits. So very important for you, when you use something, look at the license. Like what Karthik said, if it is an MIT license, Apache license, go all out, take it, use it, do whatever you want. Next slide, if there's a GPL license, take it, but you will need to give back attribution. You need to give back to the open source community for whatever changes you made to it. And the last question, right? Fourth is deadly. So you're saying, hey, you put something there, you did not give a license, and then of course all of us do it. We, let's say, copied it, or we reused code from something, and this is a more critical one. And this was the question that someone asked in the chat, saying, hey, we looked at libraries. Does it have it has a license? What about code, right? So all of us blindly copy from Stack Overflow, and maybe less than 1% knows that anything that you copied from Stack Overflow is copyrighted under a license called Creative Commons license, right? So which means if you copy the code, find the author, and in that code that you build, you have to write saying, hey, this author of this code is attributed to XYZ name. If you don't do that, you are legally breaking a license. Okay, so extremely important. So we'll summarize and leave it at this broad question, right? That says, hey, there is library, there is package, there is source code available for you to reuse. But when you reuse, understand the license. If you're taking a license that requires to be contributed back, please contribute back. If you're using a license that requires the author to be attributed to, please attribute. Even if you copy 2 lines of code, you need to be doing it, and that's extremely important. And like what Karthik showed, you can quickly see it on the platform that says, hey, this is on whatever license it is. So make sure that even when you go to code, please do that. And the next question that came in, Karthik, maybe is for you. So essentially the question is saying, hey, you showed some curated stuff. Can I look for something else, or do I need to work only with curated Is there broader knowledge available in open source? So maybe if you could take a use case that is not what you showed and said, how could people find such a use case or search for such a use case? If you could answer that, Karthik.
Yeah, sure, Ashok. I think, as I summarized earlier, definitely there's a lot of such components, functions, library that is available in the open source world, which you can search and reuse. So as an example, for example, let us say this function is built with Apache and in Java language. I'm assuming that you are, let's say, Java is one of the formats, right? So if here, this is one particular way of, achieving this functionality, it's not that you have to use that also. So you will definitely, let us say, if you want to convert a JSON array to CSV with Java, you can, search with this particular term, for example, in your own natural language ways. I'm just using this as a, quick click for me and then do it. But you can write your natural language query in your, in your own way, and then search for such functions or libraries. So if I was interested in a function, I'll be probably searching like this, and then you will get a list of good suggestions. These are again rated as a or ranked in the order that they are shown. You will get a bunch of such functions which you may use. And if you don't want to start here and then you want to see what kind of libraries are there which have this kind of functions as features within them, you will also get a suggestion of libraries. So either you start with a function and then the dependent library comes to you, or you start with like a top-down approach. You get libraries if anything's of interest to you, depending on this ranking or the other let us say dimensions in which we talked earlier about the license, all of those things. So license is also there. So for example, you see here an alert that this is not having a license, right? So which gives you a slightly red flag that this library may not be what you want. If you want to include it in your application as it is, if you want to look at it from a learning aspect, you can do that. All right. So some indications of this different dimensions and parameters are there. Then you can also look for other such functions as well. So anything that you want, you can search. You will get the functions, code snippets, the libraries, and also the kits also. If there are kits which are making use of this particular functionality, you might get that also. Okay. So for example, this is also available as a code snippet kit that I showed earlier, right? So you will get such solutions with good explanations as well. What is the code and what is the dependent library that are there, right?
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Karthik. I think there's a very related question. So maybe if you could keep your console open. Someone has asked a question saying, is quantum computing open source? So I think maybe I'll answer the first half and ask you to do something on the system there. So first half, see, quantum computing is a very large area, right? It involves hardware. It involves particle physics to say, how does quantum particles behave? And on top of it, there are operating systems and so on and so forth. So there's multiple layers of technologies from infrastructure that go out to build quantum computing. But yes, there are simulators available in open source. There are learning materials available in open source. So Karthik, maybe if you will type quantum computing there and show to our audience. So they can see, hey, what is available. And if you click on libraries there. So this is a very interesting set. So you will see, learning materials from Microsoft. So Microsoft is giving you, Q-hash quantum computing learning material. There is a open source SDK for, quantum circuits. There are cross-platform Python programming for quantum computing. So you will find, infinite amount of such resources available, which are applications that you can build for quantum computing, simulators that you can use in quantum computing, and then build it, into your application, into your use cases, and test scenarios that you might come up with. So great question, but the answer is, is a little little circuitous, which means there are layers in everything that you can use open source for. So quantum, of course, is like it's like someone saying, hey, it's cloud open source. So it is layers of cloud or open source. You can use it, and yeah, that came from Nipun Tomar, and Nipun has a follow-up question that says, hey, what is the right way to use the repository? So maybe Karthik, you could take one example that has a installer that says, hey, it is on PyPy or something. I did see something come up in that list. So for example, QS Kit Terra shows it's on PyPy. So it shows you, Nipun, there that says, hey, there is a kit that is available in open source for quantum circuits. And the way to use the repository, you can go to GitHub and download the source code. If you love to change the source code, you can look at the license. Let's see what license it has, Karthik. Just scroll down a little bit. So it has Apache 2.0 Nipun. So it is free for you. You can take it and create Nipun's version of quantum computing kit. You can change it. You can go to the top. It says, hey, here is a PyPy installer. You can copy it, install and simulate. So it's a great way for all of us to kind of take these inputs and then use them in different ways. So if you just wanted code snippets on how to use it, there will be code snippets that says, hey, how do I integrate something? If you want to see the full core source code, you can download it from GitHub and then change it. If you say, no, I just want to install it and try it, it has the link to the installer in PyPy. You can install it and try it as well. So multiple different ways that you can use anything. And like the slide that I showed, see, quantum is leaps and bounds ahead, right? But tomorrow, if some of you students are going to do a project, you're going to do something in IoT, something in natural language, something in vision, maybe something in blockchain, in crypto, all those things are here and now today. So you can find thousands of such solutions. And the example like Karthik showed, an application can be as complex as it can be, or it can be as simple as you can take a code snippet and run it. So that's a great way for you to think and practice these exercises. So for example, if you are trying to do a Python course, try data ingestion examples, run a few code snippets, learn from it. If you're trying to run, let's say, a React, try to see how you can take a calendar widget, install it and run it. And once you're ready, you can take that large kit that says, you can implement a huge one and you can take a huge one, install it as an application. And I think we're running close on time. I think follow-up question on, is it secured licenses? You see the scores there, I think, which is what Karthik has shown. So if you missed that part, you can go to the YouTube recording and look at that part again. There's one more question that says, can you consider it as a code snippet umbrella? So that's why I think it's extremely important to understand that hierarchy. There is an open source package. Package is like an installer. You can install it and run it. Then next level, there is a library, which is source code, complete source code. You can change it, run it. Then there is a code snippet, which is like a function. You can take that and run it. And all of them are available in open source to do whatever you want. If you have a large application, you want a code snippet, take it and put it. Or if you are learning some small concept, if you want a code snippet, take it and put it. If you want a library in your application, take it. Or if you want a project fully done and you want to practice, take it. So all those amazing things are available in open source and continue to use it. So in interest of time, I'll thank Amrita for the wonderful opportunity.
Thank you so much, Ashok and Karthikeyan. You guys have been absolutely amazing. And honestly, every session that I'm sitting through, it just is like democratization of tech. And every means and sharing knowledge is just taking forefront in the world. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. We'll be back in another 25 minutes. Please stay and join us for drone mitigation session next at 4 o'clock. Thank you so much, Ashok, Karthikeyan.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Bye-bye. All the best.